It's time for some Peacock and Williamson Midseason Award, MVPs, Rookies of the Year, Defensive Players of the Year. How about who we think now is going to be in the Super Bowl or maybe earn that number one pick in the NFL draft? Chargers handle the struggling Jets, and Kyler Murray back for the Cards. All that and more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Appreciate all of the everydayers out there. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. All right, we're going to start here with Monday Night Football, and it was the Los Angeles Chargers really just handling business against the New York Jets on the road at New York, 27-6, Matt. And when I look at this game, I didn't have much to take away from the Chargers because I didn't feel a lot different. You know, they're in a spot where they need to be improving now to 4-4 and getting back to 500 and trying to keep in that race in the AFC West. And the New York Jets now at 4-4 are a team I look at and just think, man, the defense is balling out, but the offense just can't keep hanging them out to dry like they are. And it's just such a two-sided coin there for the New York Jets that I don't know what they do. And I'm looking at Robert Saleh on the sideline, and he's just kind of got a glaze over his eyes, like he doesn't know what to do either.
Yeah, I mean, kind of an odd game. It was never really competitive. I mean, this thing was 14-0 after the first quarter, and LA controlled the action. But if you told me yesterday that Herbert was going to throw for 136 yards, the Chargers were going to rush for only 84 yards, and Zach Wilson was not going to throw any picks and was going to throw for 263, and they sacked Herbert 5 times, I'd be like, wow, Jets pulled off the upset here. You know, good job. Defense did a really good job on LA, which they did. And they got blown out, basically. I mean, so, you know, New York one-upped them, and he was sacked 8 times. And I wanted to highlight Joey Bosa. I think he's rounding back into shape and is great news for the Chargers. I've been kind of hard on the Chargers defensive stars, and I think Bosa is now becoming an upper echelon player once again, looking healthy. But they had a punt return for a touchdown early on, and the Jets turned the ball over 3 times, and this team can't overcome that at all. I mean, couldn't even be competitive with those things, despite the numbers I cited.
Yeah, the Jets can't give the ball back, and you mentioned it's a good offensive line to play against if you're a defensive star trying to collect some sacks too. So, I mean, it's the difficulty for it is too, is you look at what the Jets have done this year, and the Bills and the Chiefs and some big time teams and some big time quarterbacks, and they've handled a lot defensively and done so well that the offense continually lets them down. And you can't just put it all on Zach Wilson, although he's clearly not the guy. And even though he had a couple of games in a row, you know, this 3-game winning streak is like, okay, maybe something, you know, and then it comes back from the bye and it's like, oh yeah, okay, it's just still not good there. Offensive line is in a bad place, and there's enough playmakers there, but I don't know if even Aaron Rodgers rushing back from an Achilles is going to help this team. So I don't know if they'll be in a position to do anything, but they're still 500 right now. They're in third place though, behind Miami and Buffalo in the AFC East. It's aside from Aaron Rodgers' miraculous Achilles recovery, like as good as the defense is, it's just not enough for this team right now.
No, it's not. And they don't get to play the Giants and teams like that don't have a quarterback every week. I mean, that's the kind of games they win based on defense. And you're right about Wilson. I mean, he's not the whole problem. Zach, I'm talking about. I mean, there's going to be, I don't know, at least 5, probably more worse quarterbacks starting this upcoming week than Zach Wilson.
Yeah, and it's not like he's good either. It's one of the problems. It's just not the only problem right now for the Jets. And again, going back to Robert Saleh after the game, he's like, "Well, it wasn't the worst game he's played." It's just like, oh man, I kind of feel bad for Saleh too, because he's not choosing his quarterback, and they found themselves a quarterback, and it's a Hall of Famer, and he didn't finish a quarter of football. It's the Jets are in a rough spot. I feel bad for Jets fans. You're so close, and they kind of did a lot of things right to find a quarterback, and it's just not going to work for them this year. But I don't know.
I think the process was right. The results won't be,
Yes. And so process over results. Trust the process, New York Jets fans. Do you think that we might see Aaron Rodgers? Because I kind of know buying it, but like he's pushing it. I don't know. I don't know what that would look like, especially behind that line, because he's going to get hit as soon as he starts playing. Or is it going to be just like this super, like late? Like not quite late Roethlisberger or maybe Tom Brady or Drew Brees, but Hall of Famer, 40, coming off an injury, does not want to get hit. You just throwing dink and dunk and trying to get the ball out of your hands quickly. Would that be like a savior for the Jets this year if he rushes back? I'm not sure if I'm even buying that one either.
Savior, no, it would certainly be better. I mean, I'd hate it to be terrible though. Like if it looks like end of career Ben or Breeze or Eli, and those guys shouldn't have been out there. That would make me sad as a fan. Like I don't want to see Rodgers looking that way. I do believe that he believes he's coming back.
Yeah, he's definitely wired in a way that, and a lot of great ones are that they're indestructible, and that he's not going to listen to the timelines. He's going to have his own timeline, and clearly he's pushing it and he's ahead of it. And so, seems like he thinks he's going to make it. We'll see if that ends up happening for the Jets, and if they're even in a position to take advantage of that. You don't want him to hurt himself worse and then end his career either, though, rushing back.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think that's definitely part of the concern. I mean, because
Chargers, is this the Jets defense, or like the Chargers can't get open aside from Keenan Allen? By the way, shout out to Zachary, big Chargers fan. Always,
I'm glad you got
in the mailbag. We got to give Allen offers to 10,000 receiving yards, right? 10,000 career receiving yards. I mean, Keenan Allen, way to go, Zachary. I know you want us to mention it, so congratulations, Keenan Allen. Fantastic career.
I think him and Mike Evans to me are maybe Hall of Famers, probably Hall of Famers. Like give me 2 more good years or whatever.
Kyler Murray, it is official now. The Clayton Tune era. I don't think we're going to miss you too bad. It was 1 week for Clayton Tune. Now we're going to Kyler Murray. It's getting to the 3-week point of his 21-day window after he started practicing. And I guess they wanted to use all those practice days they could before naming him back and the starter. So Kyler Murray, now the starter for the Arizona Cardinals the rest of the year. Hopefully he stays healthy. What do you think that one's going to look like? Is he the savior for the Cardinals, like we were just talking about with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets?
This one's interesting. I mean, I think there is a camp saying, don't put him out there, get the first overall pick. But I think you have to play it straight. And if he can play, you put him out there, and either you trade him or you build around him, or you still get the first overall pick, or who knows. And I don't think all of a sudden they're going to become a good team. But I think it's one of the more interesting storylines of late, though. Can he come in here and look like a top 10 quarterback? We talk about the state of quarterbacking in the league right now. Wouldn't be real hard to get to 8th on that list, 9th on that list. I mean, there's no Cousins, there's no Rodgers, there's no, get past those guys, and okay.
It was kind of like the Fields thing. Murray's played a lot better football in the NFL than Fields has, but it was like the Fields thing coming into this year. If if he plays well enough that your team wins enough games where you're not drafting number 1, then that takes care of itself, right? But if Murray's a disaster, doesn't look good, new regime that didn't draft him, and they're sitting there at number 1. By the way, Caleb Murray, not always the number 1 pick in mock drafts these days. Drake May, actually, in fact, this morning I saw a mock draft with Caleb Williams too. Drake May going number 1. There's been some struggles there for USC. So, and by the way, speaking of the first overall pick in the draft, it's going to be part of our midseason awards. We're going to pick who we think is going to be in the Super Bowl. We're going to pick who we think will actually end up with that number 1 pick in the NFL draft. Will still be Kyler Murray. If the Cardinals do end up there and still only win 1 game this season, I think it's going to be some hard decisions, and we might see a new quarterback. And if he plays well and they're winning football games despite the lack of talent, I think that takes care of itself, and you're not even having that conversation about quarterback if the Cardinals are drafting, say, even 3.
Yeah. Last little draft note, it sure seems to me that in some way, shape, or form, Williams, May, and Marvin Harrison Jr. are going to be the top 3 picks. And if Kyler plays great and you end up with Marvin Harrison Jr., it's not the worst thing I ever heard.
Oh, yeah. Not bad either. Not terrible. If you think you got your quarterback, get him a big-time weapon. And, shades of how would a faster Larry Fitzgerald look to the Cardinals?
Yeah, I think put him opposite Marquise Brown and Trey McBride, and okay.
Yeah, I mean, don't want to go crazy and put that on him. I mean, he's an all-time great and a Hall of Famer, but that's the type of prospect we're talking about here. Offensive tackle, though, too, could go really high and sneak into that conversation.
There's a lot of good
probably
ones,
not 1 or 2, depending on where the quarterbacks go, because I think wide receiver is something that you could find later. That franchise tackle might be scintillating for some teams out there. We'll see if any edge guys are in that top 5 conversation in this draft when it's all said and done as well. Okay, who will be getting that first pick? Who will earn that first pick in the NFL draft? We will project that later as part of our mid-season awards, Rookies of the Year, Defensive Players of the Year, Coaches of the Year, and MVP of the league in the first half of the 2023 season next. Today's episode of Peacock Williamson is brought to you by PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. It is some of the most fun you will have playing daily fantasy this football season and winning up to 25 times your money while you're doing it. And now with basketball season here, how about this? You can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League at PrizePicks. All you do at PrizePicks is you pick 2 or more players and you pick more or less on their projected stats. And now with the combo picks, for example, you can pick LeBron James plus Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of combined 3-pointers made and receptions during a given play. So super fun, lots of specials, lots of ways to play, tons of sports and projections that you can choose from and pick more or less than and turn $10 into $250 at PrizePicks. And all you got to do is go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL or download the app, use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that is prizepicks.com and use promo code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Here we go. Mid-season awards time. I can't believe we're already here, Matt. We're in week 10 of the NFL season. We're in November. Let's start with MVP. Who, Matt, is your first half MVP of the NFL?
So, again, this is not predicting who's going to win the award, after week 18. I mean, who deserves it right now? Because I think Mahomes is always going to be in the mix, but I couldn't give it to him now. But I mean, he's going to have a lot to say about this.
He's going to have his name on the award.
Yes, and frankly, if I were putting a chip down of who will win it, I don't know the odds off the top of my head. I might take Joe Burrow, but I can't give it to him now. But the way he's starting to play right now and going forward, right now, I think it's Lamar, though.
You stole my thunder a little bit because Joe Burrow is my dark horse to win it. I love where he has this team right now. And I think if you look at value, when you see a not 100% Burrow or a not available Burrow versus what that team is with the real Joe Burrow, it's night and day. They're one of the best teams in the NFL. So I think he has to be in that conversation right now for midseason MVP. And you're right. If he keeps this up, it might be his award to lose if the Bengals go from, the hole that they dug themselves to start the year and end up being a high seed in going deep into the playoffs here.
Yeah. And it's weird. I don't know how to phrase this, but it to your point, it might help Joe Burrow's case to get MVP that he played bad for 3 games.
Yeah. Or, like when player, like, for example, this is not going to happen because he's not going to play enough to be MVP of the league. But someone like Aaron Rodgers comes back and he is that savior for the Jets. It's like, well, he actually
and they go undefeated.
The most valuable player if he can take you from a team that's not going to make the playoffs to a team that goes to the Super Bowl. That's the value. That's exactly what that means, So, but he won't be able to do it. But I think Joe Burrow, when you see that, could be. What about Tua? He leads the league in passing yards right now. Sam Howell's too, by the way, which I was shocked at when I pulled up these the leaders, and I hadn't peeked at the leaders for a while. It's become such a quarterback award. That's why we're going to do offensive player of the year as well here. Yeah. I mean, someone like Tyreek, I think, should be in the conversation. McCaffrey should have been in the conversation earlier this year, not as much after the last few weeks, but Yeah, I think quarterbacks, Mahomes has to be there because of what is around him now versus what used to be. And at this point, I mean, you almost give it to Mahomes. I almost have to go Mahomes here.
Yeah, I'm still going with Lamar. I mean, I think he's been really, really strong.
Yeah,
but I'm not taking anything away from Lamar. But his case to me is number one right now. I mean, so that's an honor. But I don't think he's blowing people's doors off like Mahomes did that one year, or just running away with the award. It's a little bit by default,
And it's all Lamar that last couple of weeks he just hasn't put up a bunch of big stats, and Gus Edwards scoring touchdowns, Mitchell scoring touchdowns, and so when you look statistically at it, he's not in the top of the leaderboard of passing leaders. He, he's doing his thing on the ground, but it's not like mind-blowing numbers.
No.
Team is doing great and he is playing great, and he absolutely deserves to be in that conversation. I'd probably just lean toward Mahomes, but there, 1 and 2, and I think I put 2 and 3 maybe.
I hear you. I don't know if we talked about this, but this is a little mind-boggling. I know we have mentioned that Miami doesn't have a good win yet. I mean, I think we know that the upper tier teams they've all lost to, but the average winning percentage of the teams Miami has beaten is 23%. I mean, it's
you did mention that. I didn't remember what the number was, but it's
horrible.
It's pretty unbelievable. They haven't played many like middle of the road teams either. They played a lot of bad teams and destroyed them, and then they've lost to the good teams they've played.
Yeah. So I mean, he's in the conversation. He's nothing that he's doing wrong. I don't blame him for any of their bad things. He would be in the conversation.
So how about offensive player of the year then? If MVP is the quarterback award, this is going to be the non-quarterback award. So offensive player of the year, non-quarterback. I mentioned him just a minute ago. I think I would vote at this point in the season for Tyreek Hill.
I would too. My top 3, and I hope I'm not missing anyone because these are kind of off the top of my head. I would go Tyreek 1, AJ Brown 2, and then McCaffrey.
I have the exact same top 3. That's
okay.
We talk about football too often. I think maybe not. I don't know. Maybe that's a little chalky. I have no idea. But again, another surprising one. So second most passing yards in the league right now, going into week 10. Sam Howell, second most rushing yards in the league right now, going into week 10. Zach Moss of the Colts.
Is it really? Wow. And he's not even the starter anymore. Right.
Second behind McCaffrey. Pretty wild there. But Hill, Brown, the exact order I have him in right now.
Yep. That's pretty. I think Tyreek's pretty easily stamped. Boom. I mean, just changes the game so much.
This is a little more fun. It's a little less stat driven, but it is very stat driven as well. Defensive player of the year, Matt, for midway 2023. Who you got?
There's so many awesome ones, and they're mostly edge rushers. I think Fred Warner would be my non-edge rusher. Would probably get that nod, but I am going to give it to an edge rusher. If the Raiders were better, Crosby would be possibly my vote.
Mm-hmm.
I think it comes down to Watt versus Garrett, and the Browns' defense is better, so I'll give it to Garrett.
Yep, I've got the same guy, Myles Garrett, 9.5 sacks. By the way, Donnell Hunter's leading the league in sacks, with 10. So and really helping out that run that the Vikings are making. So certainly in the conversation. Max Crosby as well. I totally agree there. Watt deserves to be in the conversation. Those are all the sack leaders. They're stud players. They're difference makers. They change the way the offenses play. I'm looking at the best defense in the league so far in the first half of the year, which is probably the Cleveland Browns. The best player on that defense, the guy that teams are still double teaming and chipping the most in the league. I think Garrett's 1 and Nick Bosa, I think, is 2.
Is it?
Still, it was a few weeks ago. Myles Garrett for me, defensive player of the year in the first half.
Yep. I mean, he's been unbelievable.
There's 4 or 5 edge rushers that are on a 20 sack pace this year, man.
Is it really? I didn't know that. I knew Hunter was number 1. It's funny. We don't even bring up Micah Parsons, he's unbelievable. And he didn't even get out of our mouth,
And how about this? Khalil Mack's got 9 sacks all of a sudden too. He's 5th in the NFL. Hunter's got 10. And then Watt, Garrett, Crosby, all 9.5 sacks right now going into week 10.
Wow. Wonder if the record falls this year.
It could. It absolutely could. Especially should we have an offensive line award here? It's a little bit more difficult, but there's not a lot of great offensive line play around the league, and a lot of the good ones are getting hurt too. So
yeah,
it's tough. I mean, you saw it last night, Monday Night Football. Offensive line was probably the story of the game. One offensive line is better than the other, and game over.
I had thought about that, but I think the Eagles are still the reigning champ as offensive line award. I mean, they've won loss. They're really good team,
right? Yeah, and you could go up and down. I love the way that the Ravens There was big questions we had about the Ravens. Both lines, they're getting pressure on the defensive line, and they are blocking well. Tyler Linderbaum is looking like the real deal. His athleticism getting out on the second level. We talked about how Lamar Jackson hadn't had to do much in the last couple of weeks, and handing off to Gus Edwards and Keaton Mitchell, and they're doing damage because that line is winning up front. So that's another one.
Yeah, Stanley's healthy, which is huge for them too, but their line's been great. Yeah.
Okay, next, let's flip to the defensive side of the ball. Let's flip to the young players in the NFL. Okay. We got offensive, defensive, rookies of the year, coach of the year, and we'll make our projections for those Super Bowl teams and who we think will get the first pick in the NFL draft. Next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And right now, a little special offer for our listeners. New customers at FanDuel get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. You heard me right. You get $150 free to play with of bonus bets at FanDuel if your team wins that first $5 bet. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get on the action than mid-season now at FanDuel. The app is super easy to use. It's safe, easy to cash out when you want, tons of ways to play, wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders. You can bet on just about any of the things we're talking about, rookies of the year, coaches of the year, who's going to win the Super Bowl. You can build your own parlays, which is my funnest thing, one of the funnest things you can do on the FanDuel app. So just go to FanDuel, and by the way, I mean, tons of other sports out there and other ways to play, not just NFL football that we're talking about here every day on Peacock and Williamson. Go to FanDuel.com/locked-on and get this thing going mid-season NFL style. Again, that is FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Here we go. How about rookies of the year? It's a bummer how easy offensive rookie of the year is, because I think it's a really fun conversation because there's some pretty great rookies out there right now. But with what CJ Stroud is doing, especially recency bias, throwing up 470 yards and 5 touchdowns right before we give out these awards mid-season, I don't know how you go any way other than CJ Stroud right now. Phenomenal what he's done to start his, and it was like week 2. He was like, cool, I'm good. I'm an NFL starting quarterback. Let's go. It's pretty remarkable. You don't see that, especially when he's throwing to Nico Collins and Noah Brown and Tank Dell. This isn't a superstar group. This is still a rebuilding team in Houston, and what he's doing is remarkable.
It's remarkable. And frankly, even before this insane game this past week, it was his honor. I mean, like, he's the rookie of the year going away. This is the easiest one to pick for me of all, without question. I don't even know who 2 is. Bijan was the leader in the clubhouse coming out, and maybe second.
He hasn't had the usage to put him there. No,
right.
By the way, let me ask you this question: how would you rank rest of career right now? The AFC South is drafting. How would you rank those quarterbacks on a draft board rest of career? Because all of a sudden, you look at the AFC South has been kind of a downtrodden division, and you got Trevor Lawrence and CJ Stroud and what Will Levis has looked like, and his 2 starts in his NFL career.
Pretty exciting.
Hurt now, but people, the Colts believe they got their guy. Just an insane amount of young talent right now that none of them look like they're not hits. We can't crown any of them yet because it's too early, especially those rookies. I think we have a pretty good idea of how good Trevor Lawrence is going to be, and that he is a legit potential superstar in the NFL. How would you rank them rest of career right now if you had to draft those 4 quarterbacks?
Well, it's pretty fun that the division has really changed rapidly for the better. I mean, very, very rapidly. My list would be pretty easy, actually. Lawrence is still a distant 1. I mean, with all respect to Stroud, and I know what he did this week, you mentioned that he's on the path to being a superstar. I think he will be a superstar. I mean, I would put a large portion of my earnings that he's going to be a superstar.
Mm-hmm.
So Stroud then falls clearly into 2, and they're thrilled with them. And
you get 2 extra years of Stroud rookie contract, though. Does that sway you?
No, not at that position. Just give me the best guy. I don't care what it costs. You know,
right.
Yeah.
You hope you have to pay the best quarterback in the NFL, right?
Yes. Levis, I was not a fan of coming out, but I've been super impressed with these 2 games. I thought his Steeler performance was even better than his first one. But I would still, if I were the Titans and the Colts said, we'll give you Anthony Richardson for Levis, I would say yes. I would prefer to have Richardson.
I think I'd still have to, just because of the sample size, and I would put Lawrence 1, CJ Stroud 2. I think that's pretty easy, and there's a gap. I've seen more good play from Levis in his 2 games, and it's not like we're talking about a 5th round pick versus a 1st round pick. And I know Anthony Richardson went top 5 and he has all this ability, but I've already seen more from Levis, so that's the tiebreaker for me. And 2 weeks ago, it wouldn't even have been a conversation. So, like, we're talking about some very small samples here, but I'll give the edge number 3 right now to Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson I would take in a heartbeat, versus what.
You'd love that
going on a quarterback. So the Colts are in a really good spot right now too, and they're competitive without him, and so it'll be really interesting to see. I just hate seeing a young quarterback who needed reps and didn't play a lot of college football lose so much time to start his NFL career. I hate that, because there might be a lot of things still going into year number 2.
I bet you take it personally too with the Lance situation. Like, you've been down that road. Yeah.
He has 1 injury next year, and it's like, there goes your career. Sorry, dude.
There's your rookie contract out the window. Boom. Don't pick up the 5th year option. See you later.
It's so difficult.
So Steeler fans, I know there's a lot of you listening. If you really want to be disheartened, go check out my singular Pittsburgh Sports podcast. That's like 10 minutes. I do it in my basement. And yesterday's, I just talked about the state of the AFC quarterbacks and brought it back to Pickett. It's pretty disheartening. And I'm not even saying Pickett's a bust, but man, like, we didn't even bring up Allen, Burrow, Lamar, Mahomes, Herbert, like the guys that are already there. Rodgers is still around, so it's disheartening.
We have to pick a defensive rookie of the year, Matt.
What's his face? The corner for Seattle has been really good. Spoon has been a really good player. Yeah. But I am definitely going Jalen Carter. I mean, he's one of the best interior pass rushers in the league already. He's a wrecking machine. To no one's shock, he's really good at football.
Yeah. Christian Gonzalez looked like he was going to have a promising start, got a little banged up.
Will Anderson's
a lot of
been
offensive players drafted in the second half of the round. Yeah, Will Anderson's been fine. He's good. Early, it looked like, okay, they might have some big. He's only got a couple sacks on the year. So, he's going to have to main production, I think, to versus what someone like Devin Wood. In fact, Devin Wood, the same amount of sacks Will does this year. So, dude's not afraid. He's not the big guy. He's not afraid to hit people, and you see that confidence growing in Devin Witherspoon. So I love that. I think it is so far a 2-horse race from those 2 guys, and there's been some other good players later in the draft that have looked like ball players. I love Joey Porter, what he did with
he's come on strong.
DeAndre Hopkins last year. Love seeing that. The guys coming on strong. It's harder for defensive players statistically to just to shine. Brian Branch, I love what I saw from him early in the year. He got hurt. So I think it is right now a 2-horse race there, just because of the draft pedigree and how well those 2 guys are playing, those top 10 picks, and Jalen Carter and Witherspoon. You said Carter. I'll give it to Witherspoon.
Okay. Yeah, they've both been home runs.
Coach of the year, first half of the NFL season, Matt.
So Bill Barnwell put his awards out yesterday on ESPN.com, and his coach of the year was Mike Tomlin, which hadn't even dawned on me, to be honest with you. And he's never won it, even though he had a winning record with Duck Hodges and all, he's had a very good career, of course. And I wouldn't have even considered him, but he made a really strong case. Like, they never out yardage their opponent, and they're 2 games above 500. But I would give it to Harbaugh.
Yeah, man, I love it for Harbaugh too, because this is a team that's exceeded expectations. And this is a team that is just one of the best in the NFL right now. I think Andy Reid has to be in the conversation. I love what I'm seeing on the defensive side of the ball. If we're doing like a coordinator, you might go Spagnuolo, because of what that Chiefs defense is doing right now. I think
what about the Eagles? I mean, you bring this up a lot. The Eagles lost both coordinators.
Yeah.
And they've lost one game.
I mean, it's hard to argue.
Not so bad. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Not so bad.
Fantastic. You look at some teams that are maybe like, if there was like rookie coach of the year, D'Amico Ryans got the Texans at 4-4, right? Like that's a phenomenal job he's doing there.
I don't see a Dayball though that took a team we thought was going to be terrible and made them a wild card team.
I would maybe see someone like Kevin O'Connell because of where the Vikings were, and now he's got them to 5-4, and they're winning games with Josh Dobbs now.
Third quarterback, no Justin Jefferson, and they might go to the playoffs.
Pretty phenomenal job there. And depending on if the Dolphins can win some big games, I think Mike McDaniel would be in there as well.
Yeah, they need to have more signature wins, but yes. Yeah. Would you even consider Tomlin? It didn't dawn on me, but he made a pretty decent case.
You kind of have to. With that, if we talk about exceeding expectations and winning football games, I mean,
it's one of the worst offenses in the league. And
it's hard to win football games when your offense is terrible for 3 quarters out of every single game.
Yeah, and the quarterback can't complete passes, and the running game's not very good. And
all right, real quick before we get out of here, this is projection time now. This isn't so much looking at midseason, but now we've seen almost half a season of football, Matt. Who are your Super Bowl combatants, and who do you think is going to have the first pick in the draft?
There's a lot of horrible teams. I think the Giants are the most horrible of all, especially with how they're playing now. I think the couple teams would go ahead.
I would pick tomorrow, neutral site. I would pick Kyler Murray's Cardinals all day over the Tommy DeVito New York Giants.
Yeah, exactly. But a couple of the teams below them have to win a game or two for the Giants to earn number one. I'm
going to say the Bears end up with it because they got 2 shots.
Well, yeah.
I think it's going to be the Carolina Panthers pick.
Okay.
I'm going with the Panthers. I think there's going to be some chippiness with the Cards where they win a game. Might have to end up going to tiebreakers there.
I just think the Giants are so bad right now. They're the worst team in the league on November 7th.
Right. They only have 1 game advantage over the Cards in the victory column, right?
Okay.
They have 2.
I think so. Yeah.
And the Cards and the Panthers have 1, and it's hard to envision another win on the schedule if the Giants season continues this way. And their quarterback tore his ACL, so he's not coming back.
No. So it would be so boring for me to say Chiefs over Eagles, but deep down, that's probably, if I had to bet my hard-earned podcasting money, that's probably what I would say. But I'm going to say Bengals over Eagles.
I like it. I love the way the Bengals are playing right now. That's fantastic. I'm going to throw the Ravens in there just because I don't want to see the exact same 4 teams we saw last year, which is the way things are going. And the Ravens right now are looking like the best. They have the best chance of being a team that gets in there and makes it so it's not one of those same 4 teams that we saw in the NFC and AFC championships last year. And the NFC path is just really easy. Like the 49ers have lost 3 straight games. They still have the third highest they still have the third best chance to make the Super Bowl.
Okay. Yeah.
Or to win.
They're certainly in the conversation.
I'm sorry, to make the playoffs. They have they're 5-3. They've lost 3 in a row, and they still have the third best chance to, like, with that last loss, they only went down 2%, where the Vikings, they won last week and they went up. They improved their chances to make the playoffs by 17%.
Wow. What was I going to say?
Yeah. Eagles. Yeah. I'm going to say Eagles Ravens.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to say with the Ravens, they might be the most complete team. Like in terms of weaknesses, they may have the fewest.
Stay healthy, Lamar Jackson.
Yes. Finish the season.
Thanks, everybody, for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. What did we get wrong with the midseason awards? Let us know for this week's Wednesday mailbag episode at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL on the socials. Of course, you can drop a question in the YouTube comments as well. Make sure you are subscribed up on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Matt and I back tomorrow. Peacock and Williamson.